What's going on? This is Danny. You're about to listen to our first podcast. We're a group of veterans trying to give everybody a little background about ourselves as we start this journey, trying to shine some light on veterans and the world around us. Hope you enjoy.
There's three of us. Two of us are here tonight. Our buddy Will had to take off. Will Palumbo. He's an Air Force vet, but what we wanted to do is basically, kind of share what we do. We started a group. If you want to take that.
Oh yeah. So we started a channel on YouTube, which I'm assuming if you see this, you already know it's there. It's the Veterans OP on YouTube, or YouTube/Veterans OP, or I don't know. The link will be in the description. If you're already watching this, I mean, you already know it's there.
You all know. But if you don't know,
yeah.
Hopefully I'm going to try to get some business cards.
Yeah, I've been looking
and
up
that way we can start passing this around. So when we start videoing, I just did a recent video. Once that comes out, obviously they're not going to be able to really know. But what we can do is anytime we do an event, pass business cards out. I'll put hopefully put the website on the back of the card or on the front, one way or the other.
It'll be on the card.
That way they can you can come and visit us.
Yeah.
And check out what we're doing. I think it'll be good for you. And
yeah.
You can kind of see what we got going and kind of get in the mind of our veterans out there. Cool thing about us is we're both Marines, and
yeah.
It's one of those we share like a camaraderie, and we do have an Air Force guy by the name of Will, but we also have a bunch of other guys over here that we're gonna hopefully be able to introduce you to, and kind of share their stuff too.
Mm-hmm. We're also on Twitch, twitch.tv/VOP Gaming. And that's, we basically just hang out, play some games, and just interact with the community. I mean, that's pretty much what goes on there.
Right. So, who's talking right now is Danny Colburn.
Yeah,
that's me. He's we're talking about our Marine service, and we'll probably go into that right now a little bit. He was just telling me about how he was a first service guy, and he was sharing his boot camp stories. And I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit about it. So if you want to go ahead and take it, man, I'm gonna.
Yeah, it's a wild and crazy ride. I had to go to boot camp twice. I think I just said this in the earlier, but I had a hernia and I ended up getting medically discharged. But I went back because I didn't join the Marine Corps to get a paycheck. I joined to be a Marine, and that's kind of why I went. But it was a crazy experience. It was it's hard to explain because the first time I went, I was scared out of my mind like everybody else, and the second time I went, it was trying to keep my bearing because it was hilarious to me because I knew everything that was going on, and I kind of I just had the insider knowledge to where I knew we were about to get fucked with because somebody just did something.
Yeah.
Like somebody left their Foot Locker unsecured, or somebody peed on the floor, or
I've never heard of that, but that.
We would get messed with it's boot camp. We get messed with for everything.
You always did. You would never write.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
the whole point. Yeah, absolutely. And it was one of those things that it just, no matter what you did, it was to build team.
Yeah.
Build you as a team and kind of break you down.
Yeah. You, it was one of those, you suffer for everybody else. And that's kind of what the military was about, you ended up paying for other people's mistakes, but it made you be accountable for everybody else.
So you did you did 2 stints going through boot camp. How many years did you do in? Out of curiosity.
So it would have been a total of a little less than 5, because I did about 8 months in boot camp the first time.
Yeah.
And then my second contract, I did 4 years.
Oh, no. So you made it to the 4. Cool.
Yeah, I did. But it was kind of shitty at the same time. I got in a car accident like a year out of my contract expiring.
Oh, wow.
I just came back from Iraq. We got in a car accident where we rolled 5 times on the freeway. And the guy who was driving...
California or
in California, in San Diego.
I'm about to say, because either you're on the East Coast or you're West Coast. Which one was it?
I was stationed at Camp Pendleton.
Nice.
And so he was driving me to the airport. I was going home to surprise my family. I was in my Alphas, in my service alphas.
That's
I
the
was-
green uniform. It looks pretty cool. If you ever watch Rules of Engagement, that's the
Yeah.
main uniform they were wearing when they were going to court.
Yeah,
That's
looked,
the Alpha uniform.
I looked clean. And so we were on the freeway and it was raining. And my corporal at the time had bald tires. He was from like Ohio or something like that, where it doesn't like get downpour.
Right.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, we'll be fine." And we were driving, and he went to turn on one lane, and we hydroplaned, and we ended up, we were going straight. Next thing you know, we were sideways, and then he overcorrected, and we were like this, and then our car just flipped. We rolled 5 times on the freeway on Interstate 5.
Yeah.
We landed upside down on a truck coming up an on-ramp,
Yeah.
and he has dogs, and they chewed on the seatbelt. My seatbelt broke, so I was in the back passenger seat. And he was driving. A friend of mine was in the passenger seat.
Okay.
My son's mother was behind the driver, and I was behind the passenger. And so as we're rotating, my seatbelt broke, and I busted my head on the dome light, and I was just flying around the car.
What kind of vehicle was it?
It was like a Ranger.
Okay. So you had a truck? Like a 4-door?
It was a 4-door.
Okay.
I ended up. I tore a ligament in my ankle, one in my knee. I broke 3 ribs. I blew the L1 disc in my back. I broke my collarbone, and I had to get 3 staples in my head. And after the accident happened, my instincts kicked in, you know, from the combat training with everything. Like, I went for the first door. I opened it. My son's mother was there. She was crying. She undid her seatbelt. I picked her up out of the car. I put her down by the side of the side of the freeway against a fence. I went back for her friend. I carried her out of there all the time. This, you know, the left half of my body's destroyed. And so I picked him up, you know, and then I'm looking for the driver, and I'm like yelling for him.
Yeah.
And I can't find him anywhere.
You talk about the middle freeway too. When you
Yeah, in the middle of the freeway, in the 5, yeah. And so I'm like freaking out, and then I hear him, and I'm like, "Oh, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just checking on the driver." And I was like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Oh, I cut my finger." And I'm like, "Okay." I walk back over there, and you know, I'm talking to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you know, we're fine and everything." And then I'm like, "Cool," and I'm like, "I can relax." And I was like, "My face is hot." I went like this. I pulled my hand, and there's just blood, just all over the place. And then as soon as I saw the blood, I was like, "I'm bleeding." And then I was like, "Oh, I hurt everywhere."
That's some crazy stuff, dude.
Yeah.
I never heard this story about you, but this
Yeah.
is like stuff that like, wow, just blow my mind.
Yeah, so I went to the hospital, and my son's mother and her friend were like, they were in a lot of pain and stuff, so they took them back there. Mind you, I'm still in my service uniform, and the EMT put my arm in a sling because I was like, my arm hurts, like, and they bandaged up my head. I went to the hospital. They sat me in the waiting room while they took them back there, and so I'm sitting there, and my son's mother, her mother, so his grandmother, is a nurse at a different hospital, and she comes in and she sees me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And like the bandage on my head is just red now because it's bleeding through. And I was like, I'm okay. I'm a little hurt, but, and she's like, "What are you doing back here?" And I was like, "They haven't given me a room." So she walks up and she tells the nurse, like, "You need to get him into a room now." And she's like, "Well, we don't have any room." She's like, "Figure something out." And then walks back there, like in the back. It doesn't even work at this hospital. She works at a different hospital. But they called her, and she was at work, so she's still in her scrubs. She has her badge from a different hospital. She just goes back there and starts running things.
You're talking about civilian hospital too.
Yeah, civilian hospital.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
And so then they bring me back there, and they set me on a gurney or whatever in the hallway.
Right.
And they start taking care of me, doing my blood and everything. But it was a crazy time.
That's wild, dude.
Yeah. That's where
I can't fathom that. That's pretty crazy.
that's when I found out when my son's mother was pregnant.
Wow. That's what you found out that time too.
At that exact moment, yeah.
Wow. So how's your son now?
He's great.
No, I mean, how old is he now?
He'll be 11. Well, I don't know when this is going to come out, but he'll be 11. He's 10 currently.
This year, 2020, right?
Yeah, 2020 he'll be 11.
So during our COVID time is
Yeah.
when he's saying that he's going to be 2020. So that's cool, man. Yeah, at the same time, that's pretty wild to hear.
Yeah.
Never knew that about you.
Yeah, and I had complications because of that, because I was going to re-enlist. My dad did 16 years in the Marine Corps.
Oh, wow.
He was right after Vietnam, like right around Vietnam time.
Right?
And so he was, I think he got out as a sergeant, maybe not 16 years. I don't remember exactly.
As a sergeant, you got out at 16 years.
Something like that.
Okay.
I'm not exactly. I have what they call an Oprah childhood.
Right.
So like,
You got a free card? No, I'm kidding. So.
so my mother was huge into drugs.
Okay.
My stepdad raised me. My stepdad was in the army in Vietnam. He actually went to Vietnam.
Oh, that's wild.
And my father, who was in the Marine Corps, who I get my DNA from,
Yeah.
we didn't have a relationship till I was 18 after I
Okay.
graduated high school.
Nice.
But my dad, my stepdad, he's the one who raised me, and he was in the army during Vietnam and stuff. And but anyways, I don't know where I was going with this, but so right
No, I
before
get you. I get you. Just past families is
Yeah.
it's always
It's
always
always
important because I mean, like even me, I grew up in a. I got the Lieutenant Dan syndrome going, man. Freaking my whole family at one point or another.
yeah,
If you look right behind you,
Yeah.
there's a sword right there. The sword that's sitting right there. Yes, that is the Army cavalry sword. So my great grandfather
yeah.
received the Medal of Honor in the Civil War,
Oh.
and that's his sword.
That's
So I
crazy.
mean, it's sitting in this room. So everything you see in this room is actually my stuff. So I'm not trying to say something, but that, yeah, I'm proud of like no, absolutely. So that sword is actually so that's back from the Civil War. So pretty wild in there. I have a huge military history background to my family. I pretty much when I say Lieutenant Dan, pretty much everybody in every generation has served in the military.
Yeah.
I thought I was the last. My one of my second cousins, believe it or not, he actually just joined the army recently, so he's actually taken up the mantle at this point. So someone has past my generation has actually joined. But that's pretty amazing. You know, when you have military families like that, you know, it's pretty wild that you carry on the tradition.
Well, and that's what I wanted to do, and that reminds me of what I was talking about. So my father did, time in the Marine Corps, and I was like, I could do that. I could do 20 years, no problem. Once you get past your first 4 years, it gets easier. Once you get past your first 8 years, you're set. As long as you're not a shitbag.
Yes.
As long as you do your job and you just continue with it, it's easy after that. And I was like,
Right.
I mean, I've already came through a hump. I can continue doing, the rest of it.
Right.
No problem. I've got this,
Yeah.
And then I got in a car accident, and then it just went downhill from there because then I didn't know what I wanted to do. I spent my last almost 3.5 years thinking I'm going to retire from the Marine Corps.
Yep.
And then after that, I was just like, what am I going to do now?
Right. You know what's hilarious is so I did 23 years in the Marine Corps. But what makes that hilarious is a lot of times I wasn't even thinking about 23 years in the Marine Corps. I just wanted to do my 4.
Yeah.
And thought I was going to get out. And, it turned out, I have to say, if you marry the right person, like my wife's amazing. I'm still married to her. So I've been married to her only 2 years shy of my actual military job.
Wow,
So
that's awesome.
when you look at that, 23 years I was in,
Yeah.
so it was 21 years that I was married to her.
Jeez.
So so it's funny because, and we're both high school, so she was a senior in high school. No, let me correct that. She was a junior in high school when I started dating her.
Yeah.
I had just made it through boot camp.
Yeah.
And then after that, so that was 95 I started dating her. 97 we got married. So 2 years later, and I told her I wouldn't marry her until I picked up a corporal.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be one of those guys that if you don't know, if you're E1 to E3, you're suffering in terms of pay and stuff like that, and you're one of those ones that's just living in poverty. I never wanted to live like that. So, when you have the right woman, they're the ones that set your path. And the great part of it is she was able to go to college, got a master's degree in teaching, and right now she's currently teaching. So, she's doing what she wanted to do. That was her dream job, and she got that. And after I'm retired, everything's about her. So,
Yeah.
that I think that's one of the great things about doing a military service, whether you do 4 years or whether you do longer than that. It's all about how yourself or if you're still married to that spouse, hook that spouse up.
I'm that statistic, the Marine Corps statistic.
There's a lot of those.
So my high school sweetheart and I dated for years, and then we split up my senior year in high school, and we got back together right after high school. Like, she joined the Air Force, and then some stuff happened.
That just says right there, man. As soon as you said another branch of service, you know that something's going on there.
And then, so when I went through boot camp the first time and had issues, and then when I went back the second time, her and I were together.
Yeah.
We got engaged, and then I was that statistic. I went to Iraq, and she left when I was in Iraq.
When did you go to Iraq? What year?
2007, 2008.
Oh, okay. She's about the transition age, wasn't it? Or the transition? Were you transition?
Yeah, when I first went to Iraq, it was like if somebody has a weapon, you shoot them.
Yeah.
And then, so I did back-to-back tours.
Okay.
Well, not of my own
Volition,
but because I told you earlier, my unit left me in Iraq.
Yeah, you were saying that. So.
Yeah. So what happened is I went in the pre-wave. So they were like, "Hey, you come early, and you'll leave early." And I was like, "Cool." And so I went, and it went from the point where if somebody has a weapon, you shoot them.
Yep.
No questions asked.
Never changed, too.
It did change.
It changed at the beginning. It didn't change later on.
It changed. Obama changed it.
Yes, 2010. Even
middle of 2008.
Yeah, 2008 started. 2010 is when they started doing the blue. A lot of blue and green started to happen. I was with the Advisor Training Group at the time.
Yeah.
And we actually developed the counter shooting. It was basically a counter shooting program in case the event that there was a blue on green.
Yeah.
And it actually was very successful. It was HEG was probably one of my favorite units I was ever with. The cool thing about it was that was actually featured in the Marine Times. It actually showed a Marine doing he was on his knees and pop it back, and it was one of the part of the shooting that we did. Yeah. We also did we had some really good instructors and contractors that actually worked for Advisor Training Group.
Mm-hmm.
So those guys would be like literally on it, man, and all the current shooting stuff that you'd see in like these cool videos that you see on YouTube or they were actually doing it, and it was actually very successful. And if you ever looked from 2010 on, actually I'm sorry, it was it was around that time. 2010 was when it started to get really bad. I was actually working during that time, and if it wasn't for the fact that we started actually teaching them how to do that, we probably would have had a lot more casualties. But yeah, no, I agree with you. It was pretty crazy when.
It was pretty nuts. When I was first there, it was just, if they have a weapon, shoot on sight. And then if we were driving on if we were on a convoy on the freeway, if somebody got next to you, you give a warning shot.
Absolutely.
And if they don't stop, you take out the engine block. And if that doesn't work, then you shoot the driver. I mean, that was our SOP.
I'll let you keep talking to your stuff, but you want to know about my stuff. I see some craziness going on with my unit, but absolutely.
It was pretty nuts. I went to TQ, Camp Al Takadum.
Takadum, yep.
Yeah, and then from there, they needed volunteers in Ramadi.
Yep.
And I was like, sure.
Ramadi was bad, so
I didn't sign up to sit in TQ. This was garbage to me, and I was like, pick me. And I got to Ramadi, and I looked around, and I was like,
what year was you were in Ramadi?
I fucked up. Beginning of 2008.
That's when they started doing a lot of the. When they using a lot of the detergent in their IEDs and stuff, which actually kind of makes it like napalm.
Like a chemical burn.
Yeah, like chemical burn / like napalm type effect when an explosive went off.
Mm-hmm.
So you went up there in a pretty nasty time.
I was in Ramadi when it was the second deadliest city in Iraq.
Yes.
They didn't tell you this.
Probably there when my buddy was there, by the way.
Could have been.
I can't remember what unit was he with. I probably hit him up on it. But his name was Dave Smith, also call sign DCAT. Mm. But he was out there during a lot of that time when it was really bad. Yeah. So I hit him up, but maybe another time.
Yeah, definitely another interview. Yeah. But we so I went to Ramadi. It used to be called Ramadi.
Yep.
Because they didn't have paved roads.
Nope. It's all dirt out there.
Yeah, they paved the roads when I was there, and it was like the roads would be like this.
Yep. Up and down.
As you're going, and I'm like, hey, like, who did this? This is trash. They used to have the TCN, the Third Country Nationals, they bring them in there. We call them a Blue Man Group because they were in blue jumpsuits.
Okay.
And that's how you recognized if people were there. You'd be like, oh, there's the Blue Man Group because they're picking up trash or they're putting up concertina wire or whatever.
Makes sense.
And so I ended up going to Ramadi, and my unit, which will not be named.
Well, I mean, as long as you ain't got a bad reputation, I can tell you some bad stuff about when I was in.
So the unit I was with, which we call them Reg 17 or the 17th Reg, they were like, hey, if you go early, we'll pick you up, and then we'll send you home early. Right before we were supposed to go back home, I called them up at TQ and I was like, hey, are you gonna send somebody? Yeah, we're working on it. And then I called back a couple days later, and they're like, yeah, we're still working on it. I called back, no answer. I called back again, no answer. It's like days before I'm getting ready to leave. So I'm like, you know what? Look, I'm going through a divorce right now. I'm having a shitty time, losing Marines. I want to go home. Yeah. I volunteered to come early because I was told one thing. So I'm ready for you to hold up your end of the bargain.
Right.
So I called back stateside. I talked to my Master Sergeant, who super chill dude, one of the greatest Marines I ever knew. He just passed away.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, super awesome dude. And so I called him up, and I was like, "Hey, Master Sergeant, hey, it's Colburn. I'm in Ramadi. I was told I was gonna get a replacement. What's going on?
Right.
Can you help me out?"
And this is the time you're talking about when you got left, or is this?
Yeah, this is the time when I got left. And he was like, "Hey," he's like, "Hey, Colburn, let me look around. Let me talk to some people, make some phone calls, and I'll see what I can do." And then I'm like, all right, cool, Master Sergeant. I've heard that exact same thing before, but I trust you.
Right.
And he was like, call me back tomorrow. Right. And I was like, good to go, Master Sergeant. So I waited anxiously, and I called him back, and he was like, hey, I don't want to be the one to have to tell you this, but I'm going to have to tell you this.
Oh, man.
You're going to stay. It would cost the Marine Corps too much money to send a replacement specifically for you.
Wow.
And you're going to have to stay there until your unit leaves. Oh. I said, Master, I was like, I've already been here 5 months.
Right.
They just got here.
Did they switch you to another unit?
Yeah, they TAD'd me to CLC 111.
Okay. That's a CLC is what? Logistics?
Combat Logistics Company.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was like, Master, that's not going to work for me.
Right.
I was like, look, I'm going through a divorce. I was like, there's some just shit going on. I'm not going to get into super specifics, but I was like, that's not cool, Master.
No, that's not cool at all. That really.
He was like, hey, he's like, I can't do anything unless somebody volunteers. I said, cool. Mind you, the CLC 111, it got there a month ago, so I had to wait at least another 5 months.
Wow.
So I did back-to-back deployments. They counted it as one deployment when my unit left. They stopped it, and then they picked it up as a second deployment with CLC 111.
So you got 2 deployments out.
I have 2.
That's good at least. At least you got that.
I've
seen people get screwed in terms of getting just one deployment out of a year-long.
Well, I have my Iraqi campaign with the star in it.
Okay.
With the gold star, I think it is.
Okay. Or just or 1 star.
A star. I can't remember exactly what.
I think it's bronze. I think it's one of those weird.
It has a star on it.
I get you though. I get you.
So, but because of that, when I came back, I was at the parade deck. Everybody's there. Families are there. Everybody's kissing and crying and stuff. And I look around. Nobody. No,
really?
Of course, my ex-wife's not there.
Of course not.
Nobody from my unit's there. Nobody I know besides the people I was there with. And I don't know if you were ever at Pendleton.
Yes.
So the 22 area parade deck.
Yes.
By the wing.
I know exactly where you're at. Yes.
That's where they dropped us off at. I had a house because I was married in 14 area.
Okay.
So I was like.
I can't remember where I was at. I was 3-4 used to be out in one of those areas.
Rhino?
Huh?
Rhino?
No, it was
I don't remember.
It's before they went to 29 Palms. So originally 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines.
Yeah.
There were 3-9 originally. Somalia in 1995, and then I got sent to them, and they got recommissioned from 3.9 to 3.4. It's 22 area.
22 area. Yeah, I can't remember what it
is. San
Onofre?
Oh, not San Onofre. No. Dang, I can't even remember the time. Well, I mean, either way, 22 area was where we were at.
Clemente? No, that was the other gate.
I'll remember in a few minutes when we're talking about this. But yeah, just keep going, dude.
So I was there and I was like, you know what? I picked
Margarita.
Margarita.
Yes, I was Margarita.
I've been there plenty of times. So I was like, all right, I picked up my sea bag and I was like, fuck it, I'm about to hump home, which is like 10 miles. And
a hump is a hike, by the way, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah. And it's uphill and it's like you have to walk on a road. And so my buddy who worked in the mailroom was like, hey, let me give you a ride home, because he lived in the same area. So he dropped me off, and like I got back to my house and it was empty. It was not. I walked into the house and the only thing that was there was an air mattress and my clothes in the side of
Sounds
the
about
house.
right.
And there was like some shit in the fridge.
Not counting your, of course, your barracks room, but out in town. We're talking about, right?
Well, this is my house. Yeah, I didn't have a barracks room because I had a house.
Oh, so you lived out in town?
No, I lived on base. I had base housing.
Oh, so base housing. I'm sorry.
I was a E3 at this point.
I gotcha.
And so I ended up, because of that, nobody in my unit knew I was there or anything. So I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna ride this out. I spent the next 3 weeks just chilling. I'd go to the base, the base, the PX on the 14 area.
Right.
I'd go to the
over there by the air wing. So just in case you're wondering.
No. This is the 14 area. This is main side.
14 area. Also, just main side.
The 22 is the wing.
Yes. So it's right. I mean, it's right there by the wing. No.
No. This is main side. This is like by.
It's been too long for me.
Base housing on the 14 area is by like the general, like the base general office.
Oh, I gotcha. I'm sorry. Yeah. So for the other side, so there's actually a main side, right? And then there's actually like, on the other side now. There's another main side that I gotcha. Yes.
It's like the bowling alley, the movie theater.
Yes.
The big gym.
Yes.
So I went over there and I was just like, I would get like Subway and stuff. Like I wouldn't shave. Like I was just kind of like.
You look like what you do now, right?
Not as quite. But
not quite.
yeah, kind of.
Oh man.
So I would kind of like, I would just do what I wanted. I'd go out in town. I'd just do whatever. And then I ended up running into that master sergeant. I ran into him I was at Subway.
What's his name, by the way? Do you know?
Master Sergeant Anderson.
Okay, there's so many Andersons I couldn't even tell you. You know, I actually had a drill instructor by the name of Anderson. It could have.
Yeah, I don't think.
But he went to.
He was a black dude. Robert Anderson.
Not the same guy. Because he was a white dude, but he was a drill instructor. He was my drill instructor. He was the green belt.
Oh,
the
nice.
bad drill instructor.
Yeah.
He actually became a chief warrant officer. I was actually friends with him on Together We Served. So, you know, for all you guys that are prior service, get on that site, man. Because if you want to find somebody, they're probably on there somewhere. They're one or the other.
But so I ran into him at Subway because they had a Subway and a GNC, so you could get. This is how like meathead the Marine Corps is.
They're still there.
Yeah,
that GNC still sit there.
You could get your protein Subway sandwich, and then you could get a protein shake.
They're right by each other. Yep.
Well, they're in the same. Like it's a separate building, but they. Yes. You could order the protein.
All in the same place.
You could order the protein shake at Subway from GNC.
Right.
So I was in there and I was getting a sandwich and he was like, Colburn? And I was like, oh, fuck.
Yep.
And I turned around and there he is and I was like, hey, what's up, Master? And he was like, oh, when'd you get back? And it was like a Wednesday and I was like, Monday, Master. You know? And he was like,
that quick and you're already up around running around, huh?
Well, it had been weeks ago. It was like a Monday, but it was like 3 weeks ago. Right. And he was like, oh, that's cool. He's like, hey, sorry about what happened. He's like, take the rest of this week off, report to my office on Monday morning.
Oh, that's cool of him.
And then we'll go ahead and work everything out. And I was like, cool. So I got a month free.
That's cool.
Of leave. And then I went into his office and he was like, hey, do you have anything left to do or anything? And I was like, no, I just got to sign back into our company.
Right.
And then he's like, all right, do that. And then he's like, when do you want to take leave? I said, when's the soonest I can? He's like, just tell me when you want to,
Right.
and I'll hook it up.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, hey, Master, how about next Monday?
What did we respond
Yeah.
as though?
And he was like, yeah. He's like, I'm the one who signs off on it,
Right.
so I'll go ahead and
No, nothing's done.
yeah, whatever.
We're cool.
Yeah. He's like, I'll go ahead and I'll approve it because I'm the one who signs off on it. And I was like, hey, good to go. And he was like, you know what, let's do it right now. So we sat there and he's like, where are you
Yeah.
going? And I was like, oh, I didn't have any plans. He's like, just give me an address. So I just gave him my base address and everything. And then I ended up taking like another 2 weeks off. So I had like a month and a half off when I came back from Iraq.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's nice though. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't like beat that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I took a month I was basically UA for a month.
Well, UA. If you get caught being UA, if you got to leave, then I mean, I guess
Well,
you're good.
I didn't use any of my leave days. I just figured, like, I had a bad taste in my mouth because I'm like, this unit
Yeah.
basically lied to me.
Well, they kind of left you hanging. I mean,
They
you got
did.
stuck in Iraq.
They left
I
me in
mean,
Iraq, yeah.
It's
And-
funny because I had a Marine in 2010.
Mhm.
Part of my, we were part of the we were an advisor training team.
Yeah.
So in Afghanistan, and he was a good guy. Don't get me wrong in any of this stuff. But what he ended up doing was, so when our team was leaving, we had a 13-man team.
Yeah.
We had a major leading it. We had a couple captains, a couple lieutenants, myself, and another gunny. I was a gunny at the time.
Mhm.
And then you have all the way rest of the ranks all the way down, sergeants, corporals, lance corporals. So that's what made up the team, right?
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was some of these guys actually volunteered to stay. Now I know it's not the same thing
Yeah.
because that sucks. I mean, if you get stuck having to do that, that's terrible. That's like a terrible, coincidence that you have to stuck doing that. But yeah, in terms of him, yeah, he ended up getting, he ended up volunteering, which is cool.
Yeah.
But he ended up doing probably another deployment. I was there for 9 months.
Yeah.
And this guy did another deployment, which is
top
another
of that.
6 months on top of that, which is insane. I can't believe
Yeah.
he did it, but
Well-
much respect for the guy.
When you're young like that, like, if you don't want to go, like, you might as well sit there and make some tax-free money.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing was, he went from one team to another. So
Yeah.
we were, we were part of the border mentor team, BMT.
Yeah.
In 2010. That's why I was like, I was asking about 2010. So what he did, he ended up staying another year. Was part of the same thing. He got to stay with that team, but he ended up jumping on with that same team that came in there.
Yeah.
It was the actual add-on because they needed some people.
Yeah.
So for him, it was actually pretty cool. But he wanted to do it. I mean, obviously, in your case, you didn't want to do it. But here's a question for you.
Yeah.
What was the best experience that you had in that time that you were in the Marine Corps,
Oh, man. So, deployment-wise,
or just in general?
well, no. So I've got a few. So when I was in Iraq, I met a dude, Elman, super chill dude. This dude Carr and Elman, they were from a different company because they kind of put us in class 1. I worked in a class 1 lot.
Right.
So
I know what
they
you're talking
put-
about. I know what you're talking about. Now, for our audience, though, so what you had is a supply lot. You had class 1, class 2, class 3.
Yeah.
And it was just different types of supplies,
Just supplies,
that could
yeah.
come into there, and depending
To the
on the
base.
priority.
Yeah.
So that's basically what he's talking about.
Yeah. The class 1 lot was basically we got food and supplies, and we would ship them out to other bases that were around the area of Rabati.
Yep.
And so there was me and this sergeant who was from food service and this corporal. The 3 of us came. Then there were 2 guys from, I can't remember another service company, and then 2 guys from the motor pool. Because we were working with forklifts and stuff, so they were like, "Oh, you guys are
Right.
mechanics. You can work on these forklifts."
Right.
Dumb, but whatever.
You know what, though? We were very adaptable, and it didn't matter what your job was.
Oh, yeah.
It was like an 03, man.
Oh.
Like, so 03 is infantry.
Yeah.
Obviously, Danny was food service, but it didn't matter, man. I mean, if someone needs you to do something, they would put you in that job and make you do it one way or the other.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your job is. You can do 90% of any job in the Marine Corps.
Pretty much. That's what's great about the Marine Corps, though. That's one thing I respected about the Marine Corps was you weren't just stuck in the job that you came into. You were going to do other things other than...
Period, yeah.
Whether you were a food service guy like yourself,
yeah,
motor T guy, I've seen them do infantry stuff.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
We had a whole infantry battalion. No, I'm sorry. Whole artillery battalion become an infantry battalion while I was in the Battle of Fallujah 2.
Yeah.
In 04. So that just tells you right there. And well, they split them up. The other half actually was artillery. So,
yeah.
But that's their job, artillery, and basically, you know, so they split up half their guys, and as you can see, you know,
yeah.
I'll tell you more about that if you want to hear. But
yeah, well, I mean, I went through infantry school, and because of the fact that like I'm 6'4", at the time I was like 100 and okay, I was probably like 200 pounds.
Back then?
Back then,
okay.
yeah. I'm a little...
I'm probably like that now.
Yeah,
So.
I'm a little heavier now.
You're about my size now. Yeah, okay, I got you. But for back then.
But back then, you know, I was pretty solid, and I ended up carrying like comm equipment.
Oh yeah.
I ended up carrying like the saw and stuff, and they're like, you know, if you stay here in infantry school, you know, this is the kind of stuff you're going to be doing. And I said,
right,
fuck this, like I don't want to do this every day. Like,
right. So just to give you a heads up, so the M249 saw squad automatic weapon probably weighs a good 20 pounds, not counting the ammunition.
Yeah.
So it's about 17 pounds. But when you start adding that ammunition there, you're talking about 23 pounds total. I don't remember off the top of my head, but you're carrying some weight. And then when you talk about a radio, carrying those radios, dude, that's probably the most heavy thing you could probably carry. I had much respect for comm guys.
Yeah.
Carrying a Prick 17, you're looking at like each of those batteries that they had to carry extra. You're looking at about 5 pounds for every battery, and then the dang thing weighed about 17 to 20 pounds.
Yeah, it was about 20
So
pounds.
when you look at your weight total in terms of your gear, you're talking at least 50 pounds plus
easy
in terms of what you're carrying.
Yeah.
So just so you understand, we're not talking about weapons and other stuff. We're just talking about just your pack.
Well, and you're talking about like, so you're carrying. So I was carrying the saw. I was carrying the comms. Then I was carrying my regular equipment on top of that.
Right.
So I'm carrying. Everybody's carrying about 50, 60 pounds of just regular gear. I'm carrying like 70, 80 pounds, and I'm hiking. And I have to be, because I have the comms, I'm in the front.
Yep.
So I'm there with, you know, whoever's leading it, and these officers are usually, you know, like,
oh god, the officers the worst.
They're up, ready to go, you know, like.
Yes.
And I'm just like, sir, I mean, like at this point I was 20.
Yeah.
21.
Oh, I'll tell you my story about.
And I was like, hey,
soon.
sir, you need to slow down a little bit. Like I've got twice as I might as well be carrying you on top of me.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
So
absolutely. Hey, sir, you're carrying a pistol too. I mean, come on, I'm carrying everything else other than the pistol.
Yeah. And then so because I went in, I filled somebody else's spot, and so basically I took their MOS because they
MOS is a job, by the way.
Yeah, your military occupation specialist.
Specialty. Yep.
Yeah. And so the person because I wasn't supposed to leave until like February, and they were like, hey, somebody chickened out. We need somebody to fill in right now. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. And then so I ended up taking that spot, and then I went through infantry school, and they were like, hey, you can stay here or you can take their job. And I was, you know, after 2 months, or I can't remember how long it was.
Right.
I was like, fuck this place. This place sucks. I choose whatever their job is. And they're like, cool. You're going to Fort Lee, Virginia. You are now food service. Oh. And I was sitting there thinking, and I was like, that can't be as bad as infantry school.
Nope.
I go through the schooling. The schooling's easy. It's just basic like cooking. Like, yeah, you have to learn how to you have to be sanitary. You have to do like meal preps and all this kind of stuff, but it wasn't that difficult if you have common sense. As far as like cross-contamination and food poisoning and stuff. And then I get to the fleet, and which is, for those of you who don't know, The fleet is where you go from your individual training to actual where you work every day.
Also called the FMF, Fleet Marine Force.
Yes. And so when I got to the fleet, the cooks have this thing called day on, stay on, where you work every day, all day. And I did that. And food service, their jobs, I mean, you start at 04 in the morning, and then you work till 1800.
Yes.
Maybe 1900.
1800 is 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night. In case of something.
So you work from 4 in the morning till 7 at night every day.
Oh, that's terrible.
And then you have to PT on top of that. Then you still have to do, rifle. You still have to do every other thing that's the commandant puts out there. The reading list, the
Yep.
God, what are those booklets? The
MCIs.
MCIs.
Marine
all
Corps
that.
Institution is what that stands for. That's
Yeah.
basically all of our schools in a book.
And you basically have to do all of that on top of working 12 hours a day.
Yes.
And
Been there, done that.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I kind of wish I was in infantry school. Like, I kind of wish I was doing that, because at least I was doing stuff. Like, working food service was so weird because, like, it'd be 4 in the morning.
Right.
Next thing you know, it's like 10:30, and you're like sweating, and you're like, where did time go? And the next thing you know, it's like 5 o'clock, and you're like, or 1700.
I wish I could say the same thing. So a lot of times when I did food service, but I did infantry.
Yeah.
A lot of times with infantry, what you did basically all day long was, hey, we need a working party, and you're mowing the yard, you're mowing, other people's areas, you're doing area maintenance, you're painting stuff. So really, what you're looking at is whether, regardless of what you're doing, if you're an E3 or below, you're getting stuck doing the stuff that no one else wants to do.
Well, that's what we did, because like I did a lot of like I'd be TAD with companies.
Yep.
Because I didn't want to be food service. That wasn't my initial thing. I wanted to do EOD. That's what I wanted to do.
Right. But you said you came in an open contract?
Well, my contract was for EOD.
Okay.
But I took somebody else's spot, which they didn't tell me that you take their contract as well.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, because you have different slots fill up different months. So like in a month, you have like 20-something slots. And if somebody jumps out and somebody puts somebody in, they fill that slot.
Right.
Which is what they didn't tell you.
Wow.
So when I ended up, I joined and everything, and then so I did whatever I could to be out of the chow hall. I mean, I helped out with McMap.
That's Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, just in case you didn't know.
Yes. The rifle range, the armory. I did a lot of like field ops with the infantry.
Yeah. Get out there and train, huh? There's nothing wrong with that, man. I mean, that's very respectable.
Yeah, I just didn't. I wanted to go above and beyond because, one, I loved the Marine Corps. I loved it.
Yep.
It was one of the things it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do to give it up, because it wasn't my choice, and so I always volunteered to do everything else I could to get my hands on the feeling of the Marine Corps, and so like that took me a lot of stuff. Like I ended up working with the USS Tarawa.
Yep.
I did their training.
Tarawa was if I recall, it's basically like the Bonhomme Richard, the Essex. It's basically a carrier ship that's designed for helos and Harriers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, and the Wasp is one of those. So if you ever want to look that up, that's what he's talking about.
They're designed for like rapid assault deployments or whatever.
Or short takeoff.
Yeah. They're designed for getting into the fight.
Yep.
Quickly. So we did a lot of workups with them and stuff like that, and it was great times when I was away from my unit.
Right.
I had some of the best times. Oh, that's what we were talking about. Best times when I was in Iraq. So I'm from. I was born in the Bay Area in California. Spent some time there.
Sorry to hear that. No kidding.
So this other guy who I was deployed with was from the Bay Area as well.
Okay.
So we listened to the same music, and we ended up listening to music in the yard, and we had one of those gators, which is like a golf cart.
Yeah. Are you
And-
side by side, or you're
Yeah.
yeah?
Well, but like scaled down. It wasn't
Yeah.
that cool. It was more like a golf cart.
That's pretty much a golf cart. Off-road go kart.
yeah. And so what we do is we listen to music, and we'd end up. It's called Ghost Riding the Whip,
Yep, I know what you're talking about now.
which is where you play music and you let your vehicle go and you dance next to your whatever your.
I'm sure at this point everybody knows what that is. I mean,
I
especially
don't
when
know.
the Facebook or YouTube. Or,
Yeah.
it's been pretty popular on that. But yeah,
It's
no, I
more
get
of
you.
more of a West Coast thing. Definitely, like started in the Bay Area. It's a hyphy movement type thing. Like I'm really big into hyphy music. So, but we ended up bonding over that because he was like, he started talking about how he was from, Oakland, California, and I was like, hey, yeah, me too.
Right.
So stuff bonded together, and then so we ended up like ghost riding the whip, and I remember, so he got out of the Gator and started ghost riding, and I was filming it,
Right.
and. We had these walk-in freezers outside,
Yep.
and he was driving next to it. And when he got out, the Gator's alignment was all off, so it started drifting this way,
Drifting to the right.
drifting to the right towards the freezers, and it ended up going up and riding off the side of the freezer, and then it came down off the side of the freezer and was like on two wheels for a second,
Right.
and then we're just all like. And he's just sitting there dancing and everything, and then it falls down, and he ends up dancing next to it and hopping into it. That was one of my favorite. It was one of my favorite moments of during deployment.
Makes sense. Here's a good question.
Yeah.
So, what is the worst experience you ever had while you were in the Marine Corps?
Ooh. Let's see.
I know you have to dig deep for that one, but you know what? And we all have a bad experience one with the other.
So this experience, I believe, cost me from ever getting promoted. In Iraq, still.
This is the 2007, 2008 type
Yeah.
time you're
Yep.
talking about? Okay.
Yeah. So still in Iraq. I had a corporal who shall not be named. And so my sergeant and my corporal ended up doing the thing that a lot of NCOs do.
It's non-commissioned officer, by the way.
Yes.
Just so you know.
And skip out on work. They end
Skate.
up they skate. Yes.
Seek cover, keep a low profile. What is it? Always be on guard, I think, and then take it easy.
Yeah.
And then
Sounds about right.
There's a whole acronym for skate,
Yeah.
but yes.
So they ended up, they would have to go to meetings all the time. So they would leave and we would have stuck with the work. So we'd have convoys come in at 0 dark 30.
That just means early in the morning.
And there was one convoy that was it got stuck in a sandstorm,
Right.
and let's say that's 5 times fast.
Right?
And so it was late, and it ended up being at like 03
Yep.
in the morning till it
See,
got there.
3 o'clock in the morning, man. There's nothing worse than having to get up at 3 o'clock
Yeah.
in the morning to deal with people.
Well, we were waiting up all night because
Right.
it was supposed to be here, and then we got word, and then it like kept getting pushed back and pushed back.
Yep.
And then so we ended up offloading it, and I was like, hey, put everything that needs to be like in containers and in freezers and locked up, put that away. We'll leave
Right.
the rest until the morning.
Okay.
So we woke up in the morning, and I was like, hey, go ahead, go to sleep because we have stuff to do the next day.
Right.
And so at like 5:30, maybe 06, my sergeant and corporal get up to go to the gym because they weren't there that night.
Right.
They were busy and
Doing their thing.
doing their thing. So they get up and they see the class 1 lot and they're like, it's a mess. And then they wake us up because the way Ramadi was structured is we lived on the class 1 lot.
Oh, of course.
Like we had a building there and we,
Yep.
know, because you have to watch.
Believe me, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've had it where I come on their vehicles and
Yeah.
you're like, hey, look, I need this, 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 and this. Like
Yeah.
for Afghanistan, for example, for my advisor training, no, not advisor training, but for my advisor team,
Yeah.
we ended up like ordering stuff through their guys, and then eventually we had to get bed nets because they had the camel spiders out in
Yeah.
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So what he's saying is basically the class 1 lot is, and 1 through 3 is basically all the supplies that come in, whether it's food, supplies, equipment, you name it, weapons, all that stuff, all goes to the class through one through
1 through 3. Yeah.
And you're waiting for that.
Yeah. And so there was, they showed up and they were like, oh, it's a mess out here. There's plastic and stuff all over the place. And so they woke us all up and they were like, the other guys were kind of pissed because they're like, you're not even here.
Right.
So we're outside the police calling, which is picking up trash.
Yeah, pretty much pick up trash.
Even though we only hit the rack, which is go to bed.
Went to bed.
Yeah. Which was only like 45 minutes before this because it took us time
That's
to offload
terrible.
it. It took us all a time to offload it because we had 2 forklifts.
Yeah.
And odds are one of them didn't work.
You had forklifts? Oh,
Yeah.
nice. I'm going to be sarcastic.
Yeah. Well, and odds are one of them didn't work, and we're offloading trucks of stuff.
Absolutely.
Trucks of stuff. And after a certain point, the civilian contractors go to sleep.
Yep.
And they're just like, I'm not working.
So basically, a contractor. Civilian contractor is someone who comes back. They were former military, but what they do is they end up they come back and they become basically a contractor.
Yeah.
They just basically work for the government, and they end up filling a job that is normally used by someone in the military. So
Yeah,
just in case you wonder,
they do military jobs, but are civilians, is basically. And so it was just us that night. We ended up started police calling and everything, and then this corporal who shall not be named, he thought he was cool because
One down.
his dad made stuff for Steven Seagal, so he thought he was
the actor, huh?
The actor, yeah,
And slash former CIA,
whatever,
whatever he was. I can't remember. But
so he thought he was cool, and he would use that a lot. And we were sitting there, and he was talking about something, and one of the other lance corporals was like, well, in my company, our NCOs aren't going to bitch if they weren't there.
Right. Non-commissioned officer.
Yeah.
Just remember.
And I chuckled about it because it's funny, because you're not even here. You only come to bitch about shit.
Right.
And I had this bucket in my hand that had trash in it. He came and he slapped it out of my hand.
Right.
And I said, look, don't get comfortable because we're familiar.
Right.
Like, just because we come from the same company doesn't mean you pull the shit with me. Like, and I was like, I'm just gonna walk away. And I tried to turn and walk away, and he pushed me. And I said, don't
hell
touch
no.
me.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, I said, don't touch
man.
me. And if
That's fighting right there. Regardless of whether you're brother or sister, if you ever
Yeah.
put your hands on somebody else, it's game on.
so he pushed me, and I said, don't touch me. I was like, this is your warning. Period. I don't care who you think you are. And so I tried to walk away again, and he got in front of me, and he was like, oh, what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? And I look, and I was like, hey, you might want to grab him. Like, this is not gonna end well.
No.
And I'm not even paying attention to him because at this point he doesn't exist to me, because we're in Iraq. Like, I'm about to lose it. Like, like I said earlier, I was going through a divorce.
Right.
We lost some Marines. Like, I'm on my edge right
So
now.
let's do this while we have a chance, because I think we're getting short of time. But let's talk about your worst time. Is that part of your worst time?
Yeah.
What is the worst thing that ever happened to you while you were in the Marine Corps?
Okay. The worst thing that ever happened is after I got my car accident, I was trying to transition to the Army. Marine Corps said, we can't use you. Sorry. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go into the Army. My first sergeant and I didn't get along because he joined food service and asked me, because I'm very vocal.
Right.
He asked me, how do you think I'm going to do in here? And I said, first sergeant, permission to speak freely. And he said, yeah, sure, go ahead.
And just so you know, if anybody ever asks to speak freely, that means you're going to say some shit that's going to piss
That they don't like. Yeah. And
just so we know.
he said yes, and I said, well, first sergeant, since I've been back from Iraq, which has only been like an 8-month period,
Right.
you're the fourth first sergeant we've had.
Right.
I don't feel like you're going to do any different for us because everybody comes in here thinking they're going to change us when we're completely different.
True.
And so when I went to, fast forward a few months later, when I went to submit a branch of service transfer,
Yes.
to transfer from the Marine Corps to the Army.
Right.
He wouldn't sign off on it because he's like, if you can't meet the Marine Corps standards, which mind you, I had a broken collarbone, I blew a disc in my back, I had 3 broken ribs at the time.
Isn't that funny how they do that? But anyway, yes.
He's like, if you can't meet the Marine Corps standards, you can't meet the Army standards.
Here's the stupidest part about that is supposedly in the Marine Corps, if you weren't a first class, which is the highest class that you get as a physical fitness test,
Yeah.
then you weren't nobody.
Yeah.
But they had a second and third class. Why would you even have that if you're not, and that's what he was dealing with. And unfortunately, if you're first class, I mean, no one should be telling you anything to begin with. But a second and third class, regardless, I mean, second, no one should be messing with you anyway.
Yeah.
You're still passing. Third class, you probably need some help. But at the same time, going back to Danny and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Kind of explaining where he's coming from. First class is passing. Second class, you're passing, but you're kind of borderlining it. And third class, you probably need some work. If not, you're going to have to remediate. But
yeah, the third class PFT is what he's referring to. Is you meet all the maximum standards for the Marine Corps. You meet everything to the maximum the Marine Corps wants.
Pretty much.
The second class is you're pretty average. You meet the maximum, or you meet the least standard in the Marine Corps. So like if it's 20 pull-ups, you do 20 pull-ups.
Right.
100 sit-ups.
So the minimum is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
For example, for the Marine Corps, for pull-ups, the minimum pull-ups is 5 pull-ups. If you have anything less than that, then you're out of a remedial program.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with the sit-ups and the run. So if you're, and depending on your age, depending on the run. So there's some you can definitely look it up, but at the same time, if you're meeting the standards, you should be able to pass with at least a second or third class PFT.
Well, and that's the thing is
test.
when I did my PFT, I 100 sit-ups, because if you don't do 100 sit-ups, you don't have any friends.
One is a max.
And then with the run, I was 15:30 was my run.
Damn, you're 15:30?
Yeah,
that's like
I've got one legs.
So for a 300 score, which is a perfect score on a physical fitness test, right? That's 18 minutes or less.
No, I think it's for a perfect score. It's like,
well, if you get 18
like
minutes,
12.
you get 100 points for 18.
Yeah, but for the max, well, you don't get 100 points for the max. It's like 13 minutes, because it's a 4-minute mile. Yeah.
Well, I
mean,
don't know. I look at it. It depends on your age, but I'm going to tell you the 18 minutes is, because I used to run under 18.
Yeah.
I was at 17 minutes.
Yeah.
18 minutes a little bit when I was older, but it's 18 minutes or less. So if you get 18 minutes or less, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
So you have to be under 18. So 18 is the max that you can get in terms of first score. So if you get that, you're 100 points.
Could be.
No.
I mean,
it is.
It depends on age range, because when I was 20,
well, right. But I'm just saying in general.
when I was like 24, it's like 14 minutes, because it's like a 4-minute, or it's like a 12 minutes, because it's like a 4-minute mile.
You know, crazy. They changed that.
It could have been. I got out in 2010.
Yeah. So what really
This
comes
was
down to is
this
if
was
you're
in 2009.
Yes. So what it came down to, and of course in 2000, what was it? I was getting ready to get out. So 2017, 16 is when they actually started doing push-ups too. So just so you know, they started doing push-ups too. If you could do, like, they started to go with the Army stuff.
Yeah.
But in general, for the run, if you could get under 18 minutes, your max score, regardless of your age, was 100 points.
Yeah.
So you had to get under that. So yes.
And so I was doing, I got 100 sit-ups because I have friends. I did like a 1560, 1570 for my run, 3 pull-ups. I had a broken collarbone.
If you get 15 minutes, you're that's amazing. And my fastest run time was, I want to say it was 1750.
Yeah.
And I was still getting 300 PFTs. I actually did 300 PFTs in a run. Yeah. But after that, of course, it changed. But yes, you're right.
I couldn't do pull. I had a broken collarbone.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it.
So a max for a pull up is, so if you can do 20 straight dead hang pull ups, that means you had to go all the way up,
Yeah.
you straighten your arms out, and all the way up and all the way down. That was an actual pull up.
Yeah.
I've
got long arms,
and you had to get 20.
Yeah. I got
So-
some pretty long arms, so
Yeah. So and I've
never-
seen some people
never
actually do
helped.
that online in terms of YouTube. They actually did the Marine Corps physical fitness test,
Yeah.
and they actually failed it if you actually watch it.
Yeah.
And these are bodybuilders. So believe it or not, it's actually harder than it looks.
But I ended up so the PFT I ended up doing because I couldn't because of my shoulder.
Shoulder, right?
But then I had to run a CFT as well, which is combat
So
fitness.
it's combat fitness test, yep. And we actually took that in the second half of the year. It actually started in 2000 and
We were one of the first. Well, I was there when it first
well,
started.
2005 is when we tested it because I was in SOI during that time.
Yeah.
And
It
they
didn't
actually
become-
tested us. So 2006 plus maybe.
No, it was
No?
more like 2000.
I mean 2007, 8.
2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2008 approximately was when they started doing the.
But when I took my
combat fitness test.
when I took my CFT, I got like a 260 something.
Okay, so to explain what a combat fitness test is, you had to do a 220 and run in boots and
Sprint,
use
yeah.
or boots and utilities, which is basically your lower half. You had to do a ammo can lift, where you had to lift that up, and depending on your age is how many you had to do.
Yeah.
And then you had to do what's called the I don't know what you remember what it's called.
The combat fitness course.
Well, the
You gotta run
course.
the
You had to do this course. Basically, it had involved throwing a grenade. It ended up
Doing a buddy carry.
doing this, buddy
Army
carry,
crawl.
a fireman's carry, a ammo can carry.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to do all this different stuff in order to make it.
In your camis.
and your utilities,
Your-
your
yeah.
little utilities, and you had to have it in under 220
Yeah.
in order to pass it,
Well, I ended up getting a 265, and I was like, look, first arm, like I
which
passed.
is actually really good.
I passed them
Just so
both.
you know.
I just can't do pull-ups because of my arm, like straight up.
You're in the same boat that I was in, by the way, just so
Yeah.
you know. And we'll talk about me later. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to obviously get through you, but yes.
And so when it came down to it, like I requested, he said he wouldn't sign off on it. So I was like, I request a CRCO, you know. And so I sat down, I talked with him, and he won't be named either. And so we had a conversation. I told him everything. I brought my paperwork in about my PFT, CFT. I was like, you know, sir, I just can't do pull-ups. Army doesn't require
You
pull-ups.
said for certain? Or are you talking
No, this was my CO.
Okay.
He was like a first lieutenant,
Okay.
second lieutenant something.
Second lieutenant of the CO.
I can't
Man,
remember.
they just really promoted that dude, huh?
I can't remember exactly. Well, he was like a Mustang, so he went.
Okay, so a Mustang is someone who's prior service
Yeah,
who eventually became a captain.
yeah,
So, or an 03.
yeah. Maybe he was an 03. That sounds about right. The
Yeah,
chief warrant
sounds
officer
about
3.
right.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
I can't remember. That's the only time we ever spoke. And so I went in there and I told him, and he was like, you know, I'll get behind you, you know.
Yeah.
And then I was like, cool. And so I talked to my Army recruiter, and I talked to them, and they're like, we're just waiting on the paperwork. And then I was asking about it. I talked to my company gunny, and he was like, yeah, I'll talk to the CO about it. And he's like, the CO said he's not going to sign off on it. And I
Right.
said, I was like, gunny, like he already said he would, you know.
Right.
And then so they redirected me back to the first sergeant. He's like, CO's not. I talked to the CO. He's not going to do it. And I said, I'm requesting mass right now.
Okay, so requesting mass is you have an issue with the chain of command and you need to request to go higher.
Yeah. So
Just so you know.
I requested mass to speak to the company CO
So you just went to the company CEO for a
Yep.
request mass? Hey,
Yep.
good for you.
because I was like, look, this is where it's going to end up going eventually.
Right.
Just go here.
Right.
And so we went down to the company headquarters. I went and talked to him. I explained everything. I explained that, look, I said, sir, I still want to serve. I
Right.
just can't do it in the Marine Corps anymore because I
Yeah.
blew out my shoulder. Like, I'll have to have surgery on it. And then after I have surgery, who knows if I'll ever be able to do anything.
So question is for you is did you have surgery on it or
No.
or what?
I didn't.
Okay.
They wanted to put a...
So just so you know, for instructional purposes, I actually had my shoulder reconstructed. I'll even show it to you if you really want to. But so when you have to have surgery and stuff like that, they're supposed to give you some leeway. Now, does it necessarily happen? Probably not. Now, in Danny's case, it looks like he was able to continue on or actually stop at some point.
Yeah.
and he was able to finish his time of service. But for the most part, for people who have that kind of injury, usually his career ender.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah. Well, when I went to the CO, I told him my story too. I went to boot camp twice. I did all this kind of stuff, and he was like, well, what'd your chain of command say?
Right.
And I was like, sir, last time I talked to my CO, he said yes. My first sergeant isn't on board
Right.
because he says if I can't meet the Marine Corps standards, I can't meet the Army
Are we
standards.
talking about company CO or are we talking about?
Yeah, my company CO.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was you normally a captain 03?
Yeah.
So you know.
And I said, sir, he said he's on board, but for whatever reason, he said no after I talked to him.
Right.
And I said, my company first sergeant said no because he said I'm not on Marine Corps standards, so I won't be Army standards, which is the Army standards were like half of what the Marine Corps was. And
Normally.
You did push-ups instead of pull-ups.
Yes.
And I was
Or
like-
you could do both, or you could do. It's, the Marine Corps now, believe it or not, starting in 2014, I believe,
Yeah.
they started doing the push-ups now too.
Yeah.
So we are very
Modified
much
it.
mirroring the
Yeah.
Army in terms of their physical fitness test.
Yeah. But I told him, I was like, sir, I can do it all right here, right now, if you'd like.
Yeah.
I can do the entire Army PFT or whatever it's called. I could do it right here, right now.
Right.
And he's like, oh, it's okay. Let me talk with your chain of command,
Right.
and I'll make my decision.
So physical readiness test. So that's a PRT.
Okay.
In the Army. So just throwing that out there. Just when you throw a lot of acronyms in terms of the military,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure that you understand where he's coming from. Okay.
And so they talked to my chain of command, and it was a no-go. They said they wouldn't sign off on it.
That's crazy.
So that was, I basically was pleading with them. Look, I can't be in the Marine Corps anymore, but I still want to serve.
Yes.
And they basically said because I don't kiss ass, they're not going to let me. Because I didn't kiss my first sergeant
That
ass.
is the wildest stuff I've ever heard.
They wouldn't let me because I told him I don't think he's going to do any good in our company.
So just as a question, what did you retire or where did you get out as?
I got out as a E3, as a lance.
So
Lance corporal.
okay, so E3, regardless whether you're Army, Marines, I believe they're both lance corporals.
Something or a specialist. Depends on it's Army.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think the Army is an E4 because they split. They go corporal specialist is an E4, but the same thing. They're the same thing. It's just one is more specialized
In
towards a
their
certain
field.
job. Yes.
yeah. I'm not too familiar with it, but yeah, that was the defining moment on what made me have a little bit of resentment towards the Marine Corps. Because I went
Absolutely.
my entire 4 years
Yeah.
wanting to be a Marine, loving it, and then like the last year
Yeah.
wanting to get out, hating it.
Regardless of the service, so you said how many years in the Marine Corps?
Almost 5.
So almost 5 years, and how many years in the Army?
I'd never joined the Army.
So you never got a chance to go in the Army. So he did almost 5 years. So normally on enlistment, you go for either 4 or 6.
Yeah.
So he's in between there.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy. I mean, to hear, and then having all those issues at the same time is pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, and right at the end, like I had a brand new son. I had a brand new
Yep.
baby. So I was kind of like, I want to stay in so I could take care of him and set a good example and all this kind of stuff. And then once I got out, it was like, I'm not just taking care of myself.
Right.
I was with my son's mother and my son, and I need to provide.
Right.
So I started taking, dead end jobs just to pay the bills.
Right. I didn't know much about you before, Danny. I have to say that my respect levels jumped
Yeah.
up. That's pretty crazy to hear something. I mean, even if you did 4 years, obviously did 5 in terms of what
Yeah.
we're talking about, but I mean, much respect, man. I mean, you did serve your country. You did, get out there and you did a combat deployment, and a lot of people don't really realize the politics of the military, and there's a lot of politics, believe it or not.
Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, so right now we're doing a lot of with Danny Colburn, in terms of what he did for his service. I mean, I think we're going to concentrate on that for right now. But as you can see, even at a 4 or 5 year investment, there's a lot of elements that come into play in terms of whether a master sergeant is dealing with it, a first sergeant, which he's talking about. You know, whether you get stuck in and having to do an extra deployment in Iraq. There's a lot of things to that. I mean, that most people don't think about.
Yeah, definitely. I've noticed a lot of the Marine Corps is high school. It's like cliques. You
really
get people
is.
who hang out in this clique and they end up getting along with insert staff NCO.
Yeah.
And then if you go against them, your life is horrible.
Well, depends on the staff NCO, but yes, I do agree with you.
Yeah.
Like for me, and we'll talk about my stuff later on.
Sure.
On another interview.
Yeah.
Or you know, another time when we have to do this. But you know, I retired as a staff NCO, so I understand exactly what you're saying, and I've seen it from all sides. Whether you're first sergeant, master sergeant, staff sergeant, gunner sergeant, in terms of you know what these guys can. You know, some of these guys are very narcissistic. So yes, I understand exactly where you're coming from in terms of that, and it's a lot of times it's very political.
Yeah. I've always been one of those people who just I keep it real. I don't bullshit people because nobody's got time for that. You know, like if you, I've always been the person, and I tell people that if you want something from me as far as guidance or whatever, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear instead of what you want to hear, because there's a big difference. Because if you want somebody to stroke your ego, you go somewhere else, but that's not going to help you.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
A lot of people need to hear what they really need to hear.
Right.
And I've always kind of lived my life like that, and that didn't help me in the Marine Corps.
Right. And you know what's funny is from my time in the service is what I've noticed, regardless of MOS, it's all dependent on what your upbringing is, or the upbringing in terms of what your job is. Me being an 03, I was an 0311. I became an 0369. I actually have the job in terms of every infantry job up to the staff non-commissioned officer.
Yeah.
So what I'll tell you is this. So from hearing your aspect of it, dude, I have nothing but respect. I mean, you know, and I have nothing but respect for anybody I've ever served with that has the gall or the ability to step up and, you know, be willing to, you know, be a rifleman, do the stuff that the Marine Corps is designed for.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, and you know, just hearing your story, man, I have nothing but respect for you. I mean, regardless of that master sergeant, you know, he kind of boned you over, which kind of, at the same time, I was a master sergeant when I retired.
Yeah.
But at the same time, hearing that kind of just like, dude, seriously, come on, man, just don't let this guy, you know, fall to the wayside like anybody else, or anybody else in that matter. Because I mean, really, our job as an operations chief is to make sure that when the whole unit is deployed, you know, whether you're deployed and having to stay over there, is to take care of those guys and make sure they're not getting boned over. Well, I guess we're just going to do the audio at the end of this. So, you know, much respect in terms of you know, hearing your side of the story. I respect that completely. I mean, you know, maybe some people out there may not look at that, but when you've been in long enough, you know, like for me, for example, you know, doing 23 years, you know, I've dealt with a lot of Marines, regardless of MOS, and I respect every single one of them, especially when you put forth the effort, going above and beyond to make sure that, you know, that we complete the mission, regardless of whether Iraq, Afghanistan,
stateside,
Saudi Arabia, stateside, regardless of what it is, it really does affect, you know, down to the last man, whether we could, you know, whether we're successful or not. And you know, I'll be honest with you, you have done exactly that.
Well, I mean, I appreciate it. It's just, it's one of those things where like somebody has to like
step up.
Somebody has to take charge.
No, absolutely,
you know,
absolutely. You know, and it's funny part, and what most people don't recognize is, like for me, I was a master sergeant, but I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for the E3, E4, Lance Corporal, sergeants, staff sergeants below me,
Yeah.
I would have never been successful. And I give those guys credit every single day of my career. Now, do I put that? Now you're looking at probably my room right now, and yeah, you're probably be able to see all the different things that in this the fusion camera, which probably died. We're doing obviously everything audio at this point, but when you were able to see it earlier, the things I put up for it's not me. If it wasn't for the guys below me that actually did all the work, I wouldn't have any awards whatsoever. Whether it's a Navy Achievement Medal, whether it's the the combat deployment, whether I spent 3 years on recruiting duty. I wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for the guys below, because they are the backbone of the military or the Marine Corps, and we don't give them enough credit at this point. But like guys like Danny are the guys that we forget about, and some people just they base their career on what they've done, but they forget the guys that actually did all the work. And for you, Danny, I mean, I appreciate everything you've done. I mean, you may not directly work for me, but you made a difference one way or the other. I can't wait to talk to William or Will about his experience. Now, he's a completely different branch of service, which is going to be really hard, believe it or not. But me and Danny were both Marines, so it was just crazy, and I have nothing but respect for this guy, and I have nothing but respect. And if you ever looked at the stuff that I have around in my my little room here, I wouldn't have any of that if it wasn't for the fact that guys that juniors to me did their job. And they did an awesome job, and what it did, it made me look good, one way or the other. And I used to tell these guys, I was like, look, man, if you do your job, one way or the other, at the end of it, you're going to make me look good. And believe it or not, I'm extremely appreciative. You have no idea. Mm-hmm. So when you look at everything that, you can look around this room, hopefully you were able to look at it before the cameras went out. But if you look at around it, it was all due to somebody else. Mm-hmm. It wasn't due to me. I will never take credit for something that someone else did. I mean, I'm using my office or my room here, but believe it or not, I can never say that I did it on my own. And I'm so appreciative of the guys. If you look earlier, there was a shovel over on my right side. Those guys, which was called the Ground Sensor Platoon in Okinawa, Japan. If it wasn't for those guys, which happened to respect me because I actually respected them for what they did. Those are the guys that made me. It's not the fact that I did it on my own. I will never claim that I did anything on my own. If I did anything on my own, then I obviously didn't do my job. So realistically, when you're talking to guys like Danny's the guys that make people look good, especially the higher ranks. So when I say I retired as a Master Sergeant, which I did, it wasn't on my own. I actually have nothing but appreciation for the people lower than me in terms of rank. Because those guys are the ones that made things happen. And one thing that I will tell you is, and I used to tell every single guy or gal this, because I actually started getting gals at the end of this. Yeah, really crazy, right? I used to tell them, I'm like, hey, and it's funny because it used to happen all the time, especially when I wasn't in my infantry battalion. I was actually with an intelligence battalion at one point. And one thing that stuck out the most, I had a communication Marines, and I had infantry Marines, and they're both combined effort. 4 of them were females. And it's when we first started doing this whole thing with trying to integrate females into infantry battalions. But what I will tell you is I had nothing but respect for any of them because regardless of the male or female or what they did, their contribution to the Marine Corps will never ever be forgotten, which is what I want to kind of put out there because Danny's efforts is extraordinary, and it sucks that he actually got into a car accident and had to be taken out of the service, which he really wanted to stay in and continue doing. I feel myself as fortunate as being able to stay in and be able to do 23 years. I would have done more, and I think we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But because there's a lot of politics in the military.
Well, especially when you get higher up there.
Oh, absolutely, and I have no problem sharing that kind of stuff. But the higher up you get in politics, the more you start. It's funny because I start to associate that with the what they call it, the seeing behind the curtain. And what I mean by that is basically when you see behind the curtain, you kind of see everything that's going on. And when you see everything that's going on, the higher up you get, you really get to know what is happening. And as I was getting higher and higher up in rank, it was funny because when I was an E7 or gunner sergeant, and I picked up Master Sergeant, which was an E8, I actually started to see behind the curtain, which was the politics of everything that went on in the military, the Marine Corps in general, and it was just kind of an ugly thing. Mm-hmm. It really was.
You get the big picture, and sometimes
absolutely, not only the big picture, but you see it all the way down to the lowest level.
Yeah,
and it's like, hey, do we really want to keep this guy? And it really was kind of like, well, I like this guy. I don't know why we can't keep him.
Yeah,
but it in their eyes, and it really became between the officer and staff non-commissioned officers, you started to see basically a rift between the two.
Yeah.
So it was pretty crazy. I think we should keep it at that. Sure. I mean, I think Danny, obviously, even a 4 to 5 year enlistment, man, it shows that he actually had a very dynamic existence. Good thing I'm not talking about my stuff. I mean, I had 23 years of stuff. Yeah. I mean, I could go probably forever on what happened with my enlistment and the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything else. But, the fact that he completed 5 years, dude, nothing but respect for the guy. Hopefully, if you ever decide that you want to join the military, whether it's the Marine Corps or any other branch of service, you kind of understand where we're coming from. And you will at some point if you actually end up making it through whatever, recruit training or boot camp that you have out there.
Yeah, definitely.
If you ever have anything for us, you have us both, Danny Colburn or Rob Holmes. We definitely would love to talk to you about it. So just let us know.
Yeah, I mean, if you you have any questions, or hey, if you know us, or we served together, feel free to leave a comment, good or bad, maybe. I don't know.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll get Will in this next time. He's he had to take off, but he's a former Air Force guy. I'm not sure everything on him, but next time hopefully we'll get an interview on him. Yeah, and he'll be able to give us some information in there. And then of course we have some other people from different services that we would love to interview. Yeah. And kind of give you some insight on where they're coming from. But I mean, we have all kinds of we all have stories that we can talk about. I just think that these first early kind of podcast things are going to be kind of centered around just a person that we're in this veterans OP group. Yep. And just a little bit of background about us, and some cool stories, some stuff that we went through to kind of give you a little bit of background on just about our military service. And then maybe the next one we'll get Will, and then we'll top it off with the big guns. And absolutely, man, I would love to actually interview Will and kind of see where he came from. Yeah, and he's got a lot of issues, man. I'm going to tell you that Will You know, I love the guy. He's got a lot of things in his background that I would
Yeah.
love to kind of hit and see
just-
where he comes from.
Yeah, definitely me too. There are some things about Will I'd like to just see where they stem from, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, regardless of your service, whether you're Marine Corps, Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Homeland Security, regardless, you know, the sad part is even law enforcement at this point is there's a lot of respect out there, one way or the other, and we'd love to hear where you're coming from on that. It's kind of sad that but at the same time, it'd be great to hear your side of the story in terms of where you're coming from.
Yeah, definitely.
I would love to hear that side. So hopefully we can get you guys interested in what we're, you know, kind of throwing out there for you. Danny Colburn, you know, great guy. As you can hear, you heard his story tonight. I would love to hear more about other veterans that are out there, especially from Kuna, Idaho, and Idaho in general. If we can get everybody at some point to tell their story, dude, it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
We have so many people from the VFW, from the American Legion. In general, I'd love to hear their background of where they came from.
Yeah.
Regardless of where they're from. I mean, hopefully you're interested in what we're talking about too.
Mhm.
Because I would love to know what is happening and where they came from. You heard Danny's story tonight. I mean, imagine, dude, everybody has a story behind where they came from.
Yeah.
And, you know, it would be amazing to hear everybody that we can in Idaho. I mean, obviously we can't get everybody.
Yeah, but many people as we can reach out to and talk to, just to see their experiences, you know,
Right.
to see how their military experiences, you know, shape their life.
Absolutely. And you know, we have a next generation coming out, going through boot camp, or recruit training, whatever you want to call it, that is going to be the next generation of heroes that I respect and Danny respects and everybody else respects. And then, you know, is the guy that we're like, wow, you know, I wish I was you at this point.
Mhm.
It's just an amazing thing. So,
Yeah.
you know, hopefully we'll have that opportunity to talk to everybody out there and, be able to hear your story.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, you can, if you're listening to this, you're probably already on our YouTube channel, but youtube.com/veteransop, and we also stream on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/VOP Gaming. So feel free to hit us up and, you know, leave a little comment down in the comments.
Absolutely.
And,
if you want to hear your story, let us know, dude.
yeah,
Seriously.
definitely. Yeah, if you're interested in doing that, you know, feel free to reach out from us. And I guess we'll just we'll see you guys in the next one.
All right, man. Hopefully we'll see you next time. Thank you.